The rain had just begun to fall when she stepped out of the car, not the kind of rain that storms in with thunder and fury, but a quiet, persistent drizzle that seemed to soak into everything slowly, deliberately, like memory, like injustice. She paused for a moment, looking up at the towering glass facade of the hotel. Her hotel, its golden signage glowing softly against the gray sky. There was something poetic about the way the droplets slid down the polished surface, distorting the reflection of the woman standing below, strong, composed, and entirely unaware that within the next few minutes, her identity would be questioned in a way she had spent a lifetime overcoming. Her name was Amara Collins, and she was not just another guest walking through those revolving doors. She was the CEO, the owner, the visionary behind the very brand whose name gleamed above the entrance. Every brick, every chandelier, every carefully curated detail inside that building bore the imprint of her ambition and resilience. But to the man standing at the front desk that evening, she was something else entirely. She adjusted her coat, a tailored piece of elegance that matched the quiet authority in her stride, and walked in. The lobby was alive with soft music and murmured conversations, the kind of atmosphere that whispered luxury without ever needing to shout it. She had built it that way on purpose. She believed dignity didn't need volume, it needed presence. She approached the reception desk. The young man behind it barely looked up at first. When he did, his eyes flickered with something subtle yet unmistakable in instant judgment, a quiet categorization. It was the kind of look Amara had seen countless times before, the kind that tried to define her before she even spoke.
Yeah.
He asked, his tone flat, bordering on dismissive. "I'd like to check in," she replied calmly, offering a small, polite smile. "Do you have a reservation?" he asked, already glancing past her as though expecting someone else to step forward.
"I do,"
she said, sliding her ID across the counter. "It should be under Collins." He took the card, his fingers lingering just a second too long as his eyes scanned her name. Then he looked up again, this time with a faint crease forming between his brows. "I'm sorry," he said slowly, "but I don't think there's been a mistake." Amara tilted her head slightly. "Excuse me, there's no reservation under that name," he replied, though his voice now carried a hint of impatience. As if this were a routine inconvenience he had no interest in resolving. "That's not possible," she said, still composed. "Could you check again?" He sighed, typing lazily into the system, his posture suggesting he already knew what the result would be. After a moment, he shook his head. "No, nothing. Maybe you booked at a different hotel." There it was. The assumption. The dismissal. The quiet implication that she simply didn't belong here. Amara felt a familiar tightening in her chest. Not of fear, but of recognition. She had been here before, not in this exact place, but in this exact moment. The moment where her presence was questioned, her legitimacy doubted, her identity reduced to something smaller than it truly was. "I didn't book at a different hotel," she said evenly. "I booked here." The man shrugged. "Look, if you don't have a reservation, I can't help you, and we're fully booked tonight anyway." Before she could respond, another guest approached her, a white man in a tailored suit, his confidence practically radiating. The receptionist's demeanor shifted instantly. His posture straightened, his tone softened, his smile appeared as if it had been waiting just beneath the surface. "Good evening, sir. Welcome. How may I assist you?" Amara watched the transformation with quiet clarity. It wasn't subtle. It wasn't accidental. It was deliberate. The man checked in effortlessly, his reservation found within seconds. A key card was handed over, along with a warm welcome and an offer to assist with his luggage. As he walked away, the receptionist turned back to Amara, his expression returning to its earlier indifference. "I'm going to have to ask you to step aside," he said. "You're holding up the line." For a brief moment, silence settled between them. Not the kind of silence that feels empty, but the kind that carries weight, the kind that precedes something significant. Amara didn't move. Instead, she leaned slightly forward, her voice lowering just enough to command attention without raising volume. "What's your name?" she asked. The question caught him off guard. "Excuse me, your name," she repeated, her gaze steady. "I'd like to know who I'm speaking with." He hesitated, then replied. Daniel, she said, nodding slowly. "I want you to take a very careful look at me." He frowned, clearly unsure where this was going. "I want you to look at me," she continued, "and tell me exactly what you'll see." The question made him uncomfortable. He shifted slightly, glancing around as if hoping someone else would intervene. "I see a guest without a reservation," he said finally. Amara's lips curved into the faintest hint of a smile, though there was no warmth in it. "No," she said softly. "You see a black woman," and decided that was enough information. The words hung in the air, sharp and undeniable. "That's not what he began. But she raised a hand gently, stopping him. "Let me finish," she said. "Because this moment right here, it's not new. It's not unique. It's not even surprising, but it is important." She reached into her bag and pulled out her phone, tapping the screen a few times before turning it toward him. "Take a look at this," she said. On the screen was the official website of the hotel, the very one they were standing in. And right there, at the top, was a photograph, a professional portrait of a woman standing confidently, her name displayed just beneath it, Amara Collins, Chief Executive Officer. Daniel's eyes widened as recognition slowly dawned. He looked from the phone to her, then back again, his face draining of color. I didn't, he stammered. No, Amara said quietly. You didn't? The shift in power was immediate, undeniable. The same lobby that had just moments ago felt like a place she was being denied now stood as a testament to everything she had built. I own this hotel, Daniel, she continued, and yet I had to prove that I belong in it. The weight of her words settled heavily on him. I'm so sorry, he said quickly, his voice trembling. I didn't realize that's exactly the problem, she interrupted, her tone still calm but now carrying a deeper edge. You didn't realize, you didn't consider, you didn't question your assumptions. By now a few people had begun to notice. Conversations in the lobby softened into tension, subtly shifting toward the unfolding scene. Amara straightened, her presence commanding without effort. Call your manager, she said. Daniel nodded immediately, fumbling with the phone as he made the call. Amara took a slow breath, steadying herself. This wasn't about anger, it wasn't about revenge. It was about something far more significant. It was about accountability. Moments later, the manager arrived, a middle-aged woman whose confident stride faltered the instant she recognized Amara. Ms. Collins, she said, her voice laced with concern. I had no idea you were arriving tonight. Amara offered a polite nod. Clearly, the manager's eyes flicked at Daniel, then back again, understanding the situation without needing further explanation. I sincerely apologize, she said. This is unacceptable. Amara studied her for a moment, then spoke. Apologies are easy, she said. Change is not. The manager nodded, her expression serious. You're absolutely right. Amara glanced around the lobby once more, taking in the space she had envisioned, built and brought to life. This hotel was created to represent excellence, she continued. Not just in design or service, but in values, in respect, in dignity. Her gaze returned to Daniel, who stood frozen behind the desk. And tonight, she said, it failed. The words landed with quiet finality, but as the silence stretched, there was something else beneath it, not just disappointment, but determination. Because this moment, as painful as it was, wasn't the end of the story. It was the beginning of something far more powerful in the next move that would change everything. The silence that followed her words did not feel empty, it felt charged, like the air before a storm finally breaks. Every eye in the lobby, whether openly or discreetly, had shifted toward her. Some faces held curiosity, others discomfort, and a few quiet understanding. But Amara Collins was not performing for them. She wasn't here for spectacle. She was here for truth. The manager straightened her posture, her professional instincts kicking in despite the tension. Miss Collins, please, allow me to make this right. We'll get you into the presidential suite immediately, and I'll personally ensure. Amara raised her hand gently, stopping her mid-sentence. This isn't about a room, she said, her voice steady but firm. If it were, we wouldn't be having this conversation. The manager nodded slowly, swallowing whatever rehearsed response she had been preparing. You're right. Amara turned slightly, her gaze sweeping across the staff behind the desk faces, now tense, uncertain, aware that something far greater than a customer complaint was unfolding before them. How long has he been working here? She asked, gesturing subtly toward Daniel. About 8 months. The manager replied cautiously. 8 months, Amara repeated, as if weighing the time itself. 8 months of interacting with guests. 8 months of representing this brand. She paused, letting that settle. Tell me, she continued, what kind of training do your employees receive when it comes to bias, to cultural awareness, to understanding that dignity is not selective? The manager hesitated, just for a second too long. We do have general hospitality training, she said. Customer service protocols, conflict resolution. Amara's expression didn't change, but her eyes sharpened. That's not what I asked. The distinction landed hard, because this wasn't about politeness, it was about perception. And perception, left unchallenged, becomes behavior. No, the manager admitted quietly. Not specifically. Amara nodded once, slowly. Not in anger but in confirmation. That, she said, is where the failure begins. Daniel shifted uncomfortably, his hands gripping the edge of the desk as if it were the only thing keeping him grounded. His earlier confidence had completely dissolved, replaced by something raw and exposed. I swear I didn't mean. He started again, his voice cracking. Amara turned to him, not harshly, but with a clarity that cut deeper than anger ever could. I believe you, she said. That surprised him. I believe you didn't intend to discriminate, she continued, but intention doesn't erase impact. The words were calm, measured, but they carried weight, the kind of weight that doesn't just land, but stays. You didn't see me as a possibility. she went on. You saw me as an exception, and before even confirming anything, you decided I didn't belong. Daniel lowered his eyes, unable to meet her gaze. That moment, Amara said softly, that's where dignity gets stripped. Not loudly, not violently, but quietly, casually, as if it's nothing. A hush fell deeper over the lobby. But it's not nothing, she added. It never is. The manager stepped forward slightly. Miss Collins, I take full responsibility for this reflects a failure in leadership, in training, in oversight, and I assure you, we will address it immediately. Amara studied her again, this time longer. There was sincerity there, but sincerity alone wasn't enough. Not any more immediate. Action matters, Amara said, but lasting change matters more. She took a step back, creating just enough space to shift the dynamic from confrontation to decision, and effective immediately. She continued, we're implementing mandatory bias and inclusion training across all branches. Not optional, not surface level, comprehensive. The manager nodded quickly. Of course, and not just once, Amara added. Ongoing, evaluated, measured. She turned her gaze back to Daniel, not with cruelty, but with purpose. As for you, she said, this moment will define what happens next, not because you made a mistake, but because of what you choose to learn from it. Daniel's voice was barely above a whisper. I'll learn. Amara held his gaze for a moment, as if measuring the truth of that statement. I hope so, she said, because this wasn't about destroying someone. It was about confronting something bigger than any one individual. She then looked back at the manager, and one more thing. She said, double quotes, yes, I want a review of every complaint filed in the last year related to discrimination or bias. Every single one. The manager's eyes widened slightly. That will take time, but good, Amara interrupted. Take the time. Because if this happened to me, it has happened to others, and I refuse to let those voices stay buried. There was no resistance now, only agreement, because the truth had already taken root. Amara exhaled slowly, the tension in her shoulders easing, just slightly, not because the situation was resolved, but because it was finally being addressed. She had spent years building this company, years turning obstacles into stepping stones, doubt into determination, silence into strategy. She hadn't come this far just to allow the very space she created to reflect the same barriers she once fought against. Their manager gestured gently. Please, Miss Collins, let me escort you to your suite. This time Amara didn't refuse, but as she began to walk, she paused just for a moment and turned back. Danielle. He looked up immediately. This isn't the end of your story, she said, but it is a turning point. Make sure you don't waste it. He nodded, eyes glassy, understanding that this was more than a warning. It was an opportunity, and as she walked away, the elevator doors opened with a soft chime, and as she stepped inside, the lobby behind her remained still, caught in the aftermath of something that had shifted more than just a single moment. Because what had happened here tonight wasn't just about a denied check dash, and it was about visibility. It was about recognition. It was about the quiet, persistent demand to be seen, not as an exception, not as an assumption, but as truth. The doors closed gently, sealing that moment behind her, but not erasing it. Inside the elevator, Amara allowed herself a single breath, a deeper one this time, not of relief, but of reflection. She thought about the younger version of herself, the one who had walked into rooms where no one expected her to succeed, the one who had been overlooked, underestimated, and quietly dismissed more times than she could count. Back then, she didn't have power, she didn't have ownership, she didn't have a voice that carried across entire organizations, but she had something else. She had resolve. And tonight, that same resolve had spoken not just for her, but for every person who had ever been made to feel like they didn't belong in a space they had every right to occupy. The elevator reached the top floor, the doors opening to a quiet, dimly lit hallway lined with elegance. As she stepped out, the atmosphere felt different, here calmer, removed from the noise below, but her mind wasn't at rest, because she knew something important. Change doesn't happen in grand gestures alone. It happens in policies rewritten, in conversations that don't get avoided, in systems that get questioned, in people who choose to grow instead of defend. The next morning, the impact of her decision began to ripple outward. An internal memo was sent, clear, direct, unapologetic. New training programs were scheduled. External consultants were brought in. Feedback systems were restructured to ensure anonymity and accountability. Employees talked. Some were uncomfortable, some were defensive, but many were grateful, because for the first time, the conversation wasn't being brushed aside, was being faced. And Daniel, he showed up early that day. Not because he was told to, but because he couldn't shake the weight of the night before. He stood behind that same desk, but something in him had shifted. The way he looked at people, the way he listened, the way he paused before assuming. Growth doesn't happen instantly, but awareness, that begins in a moment. Weeks later, Amara returned. Not announced, not expected, she walked through those same doors. Again, but this time, something felt different. Not perfect, but different. The energy had changed. The greetings felt more present, the awareness more real, and when she approached the desk, a new employee looked up not with assumption, but with openness. "Good afternoon," the woman said warmly. "Welcome. How may I assist you?" Amara smiled genuinely this time. "I'm just checking in," she said, and for the first time in that space. Those words meant exactly what they were supposed to mean. No doubt, no hesitation, no barrier, just belonging. Because in the end, the true measure of power isn't how high you rise, it's how deeply you change the ground beneath you. And Amara Collins, she didn't just walk into her hotel, she transformed it.